Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of your podcast. Thank you for all your constant support. I'm thinking of new ways to connect more with you, my audience, and answer many of the questions and doubts that you have. I was thinking of making a questions and answers episode where we'll just select and answer some of the questions from you, the audience. Obviously, if I'm asked a question that the answer or explanation is planned for an episode, well, I won't be able to answer them at that moment. Not until the episode comes out. But you ask me so many questions that I think this way I can answer them. Quick and easy and clear things. So just tell me what you think, what your opinions are. Leave them here in the comments. So we'll know how we can get this idea started. So well, friends, today I bring you a topic that I think you'll find interesting. A lot of people already know about this topic, but I'm going to add my 2 cents. I'm going to tell you all that I could find out with all my relatives and friends so you can know this character better. I'm talking about Julio Cesar Beltran Quintero, the Julión. All right. That's what I'm going to present today. So get ready, get comfortable, grab your snacks, pizza wings, or whatever, and if you have a good cold beer, open it. So you can enjoy this podcast with more flavor, and also for those who like or prefer warm beer like the famous Gavilan. A shout out to Garrochon. I mean, because I do know, or I'm one of those people who knows that he likes warm beer. But well, that's another story, and not related for today's episode. So, let's get to the point. Well, this guy from the Aguaje Ranch in the land near Tamazula in the state of Durango, it's famously notorious for many reasons. Although it is true that he was a man with a lot of money and also with power on the other hand. And unfortunately also, he is part of a family marked by misfortune and tragedy. Julion. As he was known by most people, he is the son of Manuel Beltran Arredondo and Mrs. Rosa Emma Quintero Felix, and he had his brother Adolfo Beltran Quintero. First of all, let me make it clear, Julion was not related to the Beltran de la Palma family. Just so there's no confusion, because some people claim and even assure they were family, but no, that's not true. He was only a compadre to Alfredo el Mochomo. Julion studied in Tamazula, Durango as a young man, then moved out of the country where he started working and making money. He did very well in those places and came back to his land with money in his pocket. As everyone knows, Julion Beltran was dedicated to the OcraN business. And like I said, he was a very successful man in his businesses. He did pretty well for himself because he handled very large amounts of money, something not just anyone can do. He was part of the Pacific Group, along with Nachito, Yoma, Pocha, the Beltrans, and all of them. Here I'm going to show you a photo of Julión Beltrán. Now, I will show you a video that I found on social media where you can see a house that Julión had in the Sierra of Durango near his hometown. Julion worked with a local from the small town of El Conchal near El Dorado, Sinaloa. He had boats to receive the merchandise and move it. From there, the coast, they would go out to receive the goods that came from South America by ship. Julion's people rode around in trucks like refrigerated types, and this way. His people transported the merchandise to hide the equipment in the refrigerated boxes to go unnoticed. Julión also had a shrimp farm over in El Conchal. They only used it as a front to go in and out of El Conchal several times with trucks supposedly loaded with shrimp. But obviously hidden in there was a lot of blow. One of his groups of Toleraspis was called the Durangos, or the Duranguillos, and they wouldn't stop. All day they were on the streets doing their thing, like I tell you, in the Dorado area and all those ranches that surround this town. Julion owned a lot of properties in many towns in the region. He had an immense family, most of whom were involved in the OcraN. Just to mention a few, there was Eduardo, the Polo from Carrizal, cousin of Julion and Chava Quintero, and also Uriel Quintero, the Jabali. He's from Coloma, Durango. All those ranches like El Ajuaje, Coloma, El Carrizal are in the same area. In fact, a shout out to where the Jabali is because he was resigned a few years ago, and I got to meet him. Talking about El Jabali, I want to tell you that I really like that corrido from El Jabali that the Parientes sing. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent now. But since I'm already talking about this, I recommend that corrido about the Jabali from Los Parientes. Here's a photo of El Jabali. He also had a great relationship with another guy nicknamed El Pata de Fierro. He had a really good route that came from the southern coasts of Mexico across the Pacific Ocean. Every turn he moved more than 3 or 4 tones, and it never failed. The most important people in that scene envied those routes a lot. Julion stayed in Vallarta for a few years, and from there, he managed his entire operational network. He was a cheerful man, but he also liked to talk a lot. And worst of all, he talked a lot but didn't keep his word in what he promised. And in that business, that's called being a man with no word. But listen carefully. I'm not saying he was like that with everyone. No. Because, of course, there are people who have only had good experiences and good memories of him. I respect that. My intention is by no means to offend. It's just to share what information I gathered about this character. In reality, the gentleman didn't always do what he said, but he did help those who asked for it. But in this business, remember, it's not the most honorable who survives, but the one with the least scruples. Because this is a survival business. It doesn't matter here if you're good or bad or a liar or honest. You just need to be how you need to be at that moment. You have to be cold and do what needs to be done to achieve what I mentioned. Survival. Julion was tough and short-tempered. He resigned people left and right. And it's inevitable. Being in those positions. Either you do it or wait for it to be done to you. And well, imagine that. Imagine. The number of people who hated him, the list was quite large. And instead, he created an entire army of manguns. He started hiring people and asked his compadre El Mochomo, that is, Alfredo Beltran Leyva, to help him find his mom. Alfredo agreed and asked Julion for several $1 million. To run all the operations, hire people, get equipment needed, and give the government so they would help to locate her. He asked for $1 million, $3 million, $5 million, but he didn't deliver results. And he was asking for more money to continue the search. That's where he picked up the lady. And by plane, she was taken to the city of Guadalajara there. They rented a hotel and stayed there all night, waiting for Mrs. Rosa's family to come and pick her up the next day. After suffering all this, her family picked her up after 10 months in that situation. Another very famous relative of Julión Beltrán is the renowned Mrs. Sandra Avila Beltran, the Queen of the Pacific, who has a very interesting story. Now, I'm going to talk about an experience that I had, is a personal story. One time I went to visit an uncle from Durango, right to his little ranch by El Rodeo. We left Culiacán, passed through Sanalona, Tamazula, and we went to the Aguaje because we were told we had to pick up someone to take him to the ranch of El Rodeo. But when we got to Aguaje, they told us the person wasn't there, that they had gone with Julion to Coloma. And so we had to head to Coloma. When we arrived, there was some kind of party hall or something like that. It was a walled space with a gate. I think it said something like it was for parties. Well, they told us to go on to get in there, that under the Tejaban was the person we were looking for. And Julion was also there. Finally, they listened to Julion when he was talking very disrespectful about Yoma and Pocha, saying they were old. The die had been cast, and they came up with a plan which consisted of Juancho. That is Virgo. To convince Julion to talk in person, the pretext was